But I wanted to start out, with the rant that I just put it up at HartmannReport.com, and I think it's also it's something that for some reason our media seems just unwilling to say, which is the exact definition of Trumpism. What is Trumpism? If you Google it, or DuckDuckGo it is how I do it, because DuckDuckGo protects your privacy. Wikipedia says it's, quote, a term for the political ideology, style of governance, political movement, and set of mechanisms for acquiring and keeping power that are associated with Donald Trump and his political base. Okay, is that Trumpism? I mean, what do you think Trumpism is? The BBC says Trumpism is, quote, what the president believes on any particular moment, on any particular day, about any particular subject. They're quoting a Republican analyst in that article. The Atlantic argues it's a, quote, populist prototype, a personality cult, or something stranger. I would say Trumpism is really only one thing. We've bounced all over the place over the last 5-6 years trying to define Trumpism. Oh, does it have to do with border security, or does it have to do with international trade, or does it have to do with economics, or does it have to do with the white middle class? No, Trumpism is really simple. Trumpism is white supremacy. And it's time to just say that. I mean, while white supremacy has been in scare quotes, a feature of many movements over the centuries. I mean, from the doctrine of discovery that Columbus used, when you sail across the sea, if you encounter people who aren't white, you can simply say, ta-da, you now belong to me. To Nazi-era fascism, right? The Nazis going after the gypsies and the Jews and whatnot. So white supremacy has been incorporated into a lot of movements, and we see it today incorporated into a lot of organizations and movements within the United States. But it's also its own standalone ideology. The belief that evolutionarily white people are superior to everybody else, which is easily disproved based on genetics, basically based on any kind of examination you want to do. And is, 1924 in the United States was the peak year for scientific racism in this country, the so-called scientific racism. And, basically since the 70s and 80s, this has just been completely ripped apart. There is no science to support that. We're all just people here. The genes that control the color of our hair, or what our faces look like, or the shape of our noses, or the color of our skin have nothing to do with anything else. There are some conditions that we have brought from other parts of the world. Sickle cell anemia is probably the most visible, that you can associate with a particular race, or Tay-Sachs disease with people who are Jewish, or cystic fibrosis with people who are from the Caucasus, white people from that region of Eastern Europe. But those have nothing to do with racial superiority or intelligence or physical capability. Nothing. White supremacy is a lie, and it's alive and well in America, and it is at the core of Trumpism. In fact, it is what Trumpism is. Remember when Trump started out, with birtherism? This was the thing that made Donald Trump famous preparing for the 2016 primary. For the 8 years of Barack Obama's presidency, Donald Trump was constantly ranting about how he couldn't be an American. He's not an American. He was born overseas. His followers were proposing all these bizarre theories, many of them still on the internet, that he was a Muslim Trojan horse, brought here from Kenya to infiltrate America and destroy us from within. Right. We called it birtherism. And this was Trump's thing. He was on TV constantly about birtherism. Louise and I were in the room with President Obama and with Donald Trump when Obama finally took Trump down and released his long-form birth certificate and just ridiculed Trump in front of 300 people. And Louise and I were sitting just maybe 50 feet from Donald Trump, and I was looking right at him. I mean, he was just slightly angled, but I could see the entirety of his face and his arms over his chest, kind of holding himself and just angry. It was bizarre. But this has been Donald Trump's life. I mean, he took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the government execution, the death penalty of 5 young black men for raping and murdering a woman in Central Park who was raped and assaulted. I don't recall if she died or not. I believe she was just assaulted. Who was raped and assaulted by another guy. And they got the DNA proof. They presented it to this other guy who was already in jail on similar charges, and he was like, yeah, that was me. And they had to release these 5 young men who had been charged in part because of the hysteria that Donald Trump was whipping up. He was all over the media on this thing. And to this day, he's saying those 5 young black men should have been put to death. He has never walked that back. After all, they must be guilty of something, right? They're black, in his mind. I mean, there's literally an entire Wikipedia page devoted to Donald Trump's racist statements. And he learned this at his father's knee. I mean, as a young man working in his dad's real estate empire, Donald and his siblings, when they were working there, one of the entry-level jobs, learn the business, was writing the letter C for colored on rental applications from black people so that those people could get that phone call, oh, I'm so sorry that apartment was just rented. John O'Donnell, who used to be a senior executive in Trump's organization, wrote a book called Trumped. And he's quoted as saying, it's in his book, Trump said, quote, black guys counting my money, I hate it. The only kind of people I want counting my money are short guys who wear yarmulkes every day. And laziness is a trait in blacks, said Trump. In '89, during this whole kerfuffle around affirmative action, and there was a Supreme Court case out of the University of Michigan and all this stuff, Trump said famously, a well-educated black has a tremendous advantage over a well-educated white in terms of the job market. Right. Like Rush Limbaugh, right?